Well, welcome everybody to our show today. Today we have Professor Speliotis, who teaches philosophy here at Bellarmine, and she's been here for a while now, so she has a lot to tell us about and like philosophy and ethics and all the above. So, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So, what drew you to Bellarmine, like to begin with?
I got a job.
Yeah, that's all that matters half the time, you know.
I mean, philosophy jobs when I was on the market, it was three candidates for every job available. So you took a job where you got it.
Yeah. So, where did you go to school?
I did my undergraduate at the University of Michigan,
Okay.
and then I went to the Peace Corps, and then I came back and I went to Catholic University in Washington, D.C. for my master's, and then switched for my PhD and went to Tulane.
Yeah, I have family in Michigan too. I do love Michigan. So where are you from then?
Massachusetts.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. Do you like it up there better than here? What do you think?
I miss Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But partly just because of just the atmosphere and the resources, very intellectual. There's tons and tons of colleges and universities. So I kind of took that for granted, and there's fewer here.
Yeah. It's kind of just like some smaller ones around here, I would say too. So, yeah. So I believe it's 31 years this year, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So after 31 years, I mean, what keeps you like coming back to like still wanting to teach and stuff? Because I mean, you never know like when you're going to retire or whatever. Like what makes you stay each year? You think?
So I went into teaching because I was interested in philosophy, and while I was studying philosophy, your first thought is I'm going to teach.
Yeah.
So I never saw myself as a teacher per se. I was just interested in philosophy, and I guess I wasn't very practical. I just wanted to study philosophy.
Yeah.
So then I had to do something to earn a living with it. So then I went into teaching, and I probably had been here about 10 years. And I remember I was talking with a student one day, and I realized that I actually really liked teaching. And that somehow doing it for those 10 years, I wasn't just doing it because, that's the only way to continue to pursue philosophy. I actually really liked teaching. I have found that by teaching, it's part of my learning. So I consider myself a student, at least as much as a teacher, that every time I teach, I mean, in ethics, for example, I've been teaching the same texts always.
Yeah.
But every single time I come to understand them a little bit better. Some of it because I think about, how do I present this? And then something maybe pops out. But a lot of it comes out of class discussions or a question that a student will ask or something that they'll write on a paper. And I think, I hadn't thought about that. And so one of the really exciting things about teaching is that I'm constantly learning. And then the other thing I really like about teaching, and I've really come to appreciate, and I'm glad, so for a while I was thinking, I'd really like to teach graduate school, but I love that I'm teaching undergraduates because I think that 18 to 22 to 23 is this amazing time of the world's completely open, and it's a time of exploration and discovery, and I want to be part of that. Like, I want people to get excited about wondering about things, which is what philosophy is trying to get us to do, and ask these deep, life important questions and try to explore them a little bit before we settle down and get a whole bunch of obligations and duties and mortgage and all of those other constraints that come along as we get older. So I just love being in at this particular time of life for the students, and just try and, not everybody wants to wonder and question, so can I prompt some people to wonder and question? And people keep asking me when I'm going to retire, or if I've thought about it. And the fact is, I guess two things. One, as long as I continue to learn, then I will want to continue to teach. Because I work on my own scholarship, but what I do in the classroom informs that. And it's also, it informs my life, because philosophy is not just something like that I do when I'm here, but it actually has shaped how I look at my whole life and my interactions with people and what I do in the world and what life means. And I think about these questions all the time, whether I'm in the classroom or working on my scholarship or just living. Because philosophy, I think philosophy is about life. But the other thing is, I've told my daughters that if they see me failing, like if they see me losing my faculties of mind, to just let me know and to say, you don't want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I mean, between like 18 and 22 years old, there's a lot of different thoughts, especially between like an 18 to a 22-year-old, like just different ideas on what they can give you each year, like especially just like ethics to like, like how I have that with you, just like deeper questions, and like today just like hearing you in class just talking about like more deeply behind the questions, like the morality of the one man, it really does make you think about it. And so I was kind of thinking about like what's like a principle that you think you live by, like not just in the classroom but also like in class and outside of class.
So I say this in my intro class all the time. Are you sure you know what you think you know?
Yeah.
And so I am constantly trying to prompt my students to question their opinions and to move beyond just declaring them to supporting them and exploring them, but I'm also doing it with myself. And that's part of the learning through my teaching is I walk in, it's like, okay, so I've got this, and then I'll be in the middle of class and I'll think, oh my gosh, that's what this means. I've been saying this for years and I never really understood what it meant. And it's very humbling because I think, well, I question myself all the time. Yeah, I know what I know. But we still make those mistakes, and I think being open to constantly learning and being excited by that, and then it's also humbling because you have to realize that, guess what? You don't know.
Yeah, I like how you said, like, constantly learning, because I mean, especially as, like, when, like, for me and, like, Lindsay per se, like, always, like, wanting to learn new things, like, I mean, that's how you build your resume and all that, so it is just nice and stuff. So, I mean, like you said, like, you're always still changing your mind about different things, too, so I guess, do you think different classes have, like, different perspectives, you think?
I do. I mean, they have a different focus, and then sometimes, because I teach multiple subjects at the same time, that as I'm approaching one question and I approach a different class and we have a different question, but they're not necessarily completely separate, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about, so for example, Lindsay is in the class right now and we're talking about justice. And, we're talking about our Constitution and that whole system and justice. And that has to do very much with our opinions, right? And how do we support them? But the other thing that it has to do with is, and this is something that is a lot of my research, and also I think about it in class, there's theories, and then there's how do we apply them in action, and you can't just identify or speak to the theory. You have to test it against how it applies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used that my whole life. When I had my kids, every philosopher is talking about human beings and human nature and what rationality is, and I'm watching these little people growing up and thinking, well, that's not quite right? Or, oh, that's what that really meant. I thought it meant something else, but they really have to mean this because this is what I'm seeing unfold in front of myself. And so the philosophers give me a way to start to approach and understand what I'm experiencing in the world, but then the world pushes back against that and then pushes me to understand it maybe a little bit better and a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel like we're always like constantly learning different principles. I mean, a lot of stuff that like in ethics you can apply to real life and stuff. I mean, especially like Aristotle and Aquinas, we've been talking about them a lot too, and like comparing, contrasting their different theories and like, like I said, testing it and all of that. So very interesting to think about. What they think their highest end is and all of that. So
yes.
It's very interesting.
And underneath all of that, because this is the question that I have realized I come back to all the time. So how do we know? But also, what is a human being? And I think about that. I think that is maybe my abiding question. And all of my classes touch on that in some way.
Yeah. So what's like, you think your main like ethical dilemma that you've dealt with like in class per se that was kind of more controversial or something maybe?
Ooh. I don't know if I have an answer to that. An ethical dilemma.
Either like in philosophy or ethics maybe. Or...
I think that, I don't know if I can answer that directly because I'm not sure from the way you framed it, but one of the things that I have had to face is, it comes back to, are you sure you know what you think you know? So I do try to act up to what I think is the good as I've thought about it. And that's not to pat myself on the back at all, it's just I think about it and I'm really trying to right thing, and sometimes I just fail.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because I'm going in maybe being righteous and I'm just wrong. And sometimes it's that I'm ignorant about the nuances of a situation or even about my own where I'm standing in a given moment, and I don't take it into account adequately, and I end up saying something the wrong way or not doing the right thing. And then really the biggest testing ground for me in terms of doing the right thing was raising kids.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like I failed so many times.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I don't know how that feels, but, like, you know, I mean, seeing, like, my mom, like, she also, like, how many kids do you have? Two. So my mom had, like, 3 daughters, especially, too, so raising 3 emotional girls constantly, you know, definitely was a wild ride, and, like, still even now, like, you know, I'm still living at home, like, when I go home for the summer, so, like, she's still constantly learning stuff from me, and I'm learning stuff from her, you know, just, like, learning each other in a way.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is it for our show today. Well, thank you for joining us. It's very, like, just insightful, so.
Okay.